My name is Jessamy Calloway, call me Jess. And 3 years ago, I buried my father under a lightning-split juniper on Section 17, 80 acres of high sagebrush plateau in Custer County, Idaho, that my great-grandfather staked during the 1909 Homestead Rush. He didn't want a casket, didn't want marble or hymns, just his boots, his old .22 rifle, and the wind singing through the rabbit brush. "When I go," he'd said, coughing through his last winter with emphysema, "put me where the coyotes can hear me, they'll keep the stories alive." So I did. And then they came. Not with guns or threats at first. No, they came with glossy brochures, drone footage, and a PowerPoint titled Viridian Peaks, Luxury Living at 6,200 Feet. A 1,400 home master plan community. Helipad, infinity edge hot tubs, a wilderness experience for tech execs who wanted to unplug for weekends but still have fiber optic Wi-Fi and artisanal kombucha on tap. Their access road straight through the eastern ridge of my land, right past Dad's juniper. They didn't ask, they filed for a private road easement under Idaho Code Section 12-1001, claiming reasonable necessity because rerouting would cost an extra $380,000. Never mind that County Road 9 ran parallel just half a mile north. Never mind that I'd lived here alone since Dad died, running a small goat dairy, restoring native bunchgrass, selling raw milk to co-ops in Boise. I got the notice 2 weeks late, sent to a P.O. box I'd closed after the post office in Mackay shut down. I drove into Chally the next morning, boots still muddy from checking fence lines, found the county clerk sipping coffee behind a desk stacked with subdivision plats. "Yeah," she said, not looking up. "Viridian Peaks Holdings filed 6 weeks ago, certified mail shows delivered. You didn't respond, so the hearing went ex parte." Ex parte, my voice cracked. "They're building a road through my father's grave." She finally looked at me. "Unless there's a marked burial plot on file with the county, it's just dirt, honey." That's when I smiled. Because she didn't know I'd spent 14 years as a land title examiner for the Bureau of Land Management in Boise. That I could read a meets and bounds description like poetry. That I knew every loophole in the General Mining Act of 1872, every clause in Idaho's quiet title statutes. In that dirt, my father's final resting place, sat atop a valid, unpatented lode mining claim filed in 1923 by my great-uncle Silas. Claim name: the Widow's Vein. Status: active. Because in Idaho, if you perform $100 worth of annual assessment work and file a notice with the county, your claim stays alive, even if all your mining is memory. The fatal mistake. I confronted the project manager at their temporary sales office, a double-wide trailer with fake timber siding parked on BLM land they'd leased for $1 a year. Her name was Candace Voss, late 40s, hair so blonde it hurt to look at, wore a Viridian Peaks windbreaker like it was a uniform. "I understand this is emotional," she said, scrolling through her iPad, "but progress doesn't stop for sentiment." "Your road cuts through an active federal mining claim," I said. She laughed. "Mining on this rock pile, honey, the only thing you're extracting is goat cheese. Then show me your BLM right-of-way permit for crossing an unpatented claim." Her fingers froze. That night, I called Myra Chen, my old BLM colleague who now ran a solo practice in Missoula specializing in mineral rights and federal land use. "Jess," she answered on the first ring, "you sound like you're about to do something reckless. I need an emergency injunction. They're breaking ground Monday." "On what grounds?" "Trespass on an active mining claim under 30 U.S.C. Section 26, plus violation of the National Historic Preservation Act if I can prove cultural significance." "Do you have proof of annual assessment work?" I opened Dad's cedar chest, pulled out 90 years of handwritten logs, receipts for pickaxes and blasting caps, photos of Silas panning in Dry Creek Gulch, and most importantly, my own filings from the past 5 years, GPS coordinates, drone surveys, even a $120 invoice from a local welder for reinforcing claim monument. "I've got it all," I said. Myra exhaled. "File by 5 a.m. Monday, I'll draft it tonight." The courtroom. Judge Arlen Pike, a third-generation sheep rancher with a face like cracked leather, listened in silence as Candace's lawyer argued that no commercial mining has occurred in 70 years. "Your Honor," Myra countered, the law doesn't require profit, it requires intent and maintenance. Ms. Calloway filed her 2023 Notice of Intent to hold on time. She performed assessment work clearing invasive cheatgrass to protect native habitat qualifies as improvement of the claim per United States v. Locke. Candace leaned over and whispered something to her attorney. He stood. Your Honor, Viridian Peaks began road grading Friday evening before this injunction existed. Halting now would destabilize the cut slope. It's a safety hazard. My stomach dropped. They started early. Judge Pike's jaw tightened. Did you file a notice of commencement with the county? No, Your Honor, but the county approved the preliminary grading schedule. That's not what I asked. Silence. Motion for temporary restraining order denied, he said. However, I'm ordering an immediate archaeological survey of the proposed road corridor, and Ms. Voss, your company will bear all costs. Candace smirked as she walked past me in the hallway. Enjoy your goats, Jessa, you just delayed the inevitable. But she didn't see me staring at the project map taped to her trailer window. Because right next to the road alignment was a thin blue line labeled Dry Creek Seasonal Flow. And I knew Dry Creek didn't just feed my spring, it fed the entire Viridian Peaks water system. Water is the weapon. Back home, I pulled out Dad's old hydrology maps hand-drawn on yellowed graph paper. He'd tracked every seep, every snowmelt trickle since 1958. Dry Creek wasn't just seasonal, it was prior appropriated. In 1911, Silas Calloway filed water right ID 17842 for domestic and livestock use on the Widow's Vein claim. Priority date, March 12, 1911. Senior to every subdivision built after 1980. I drove to the Idaho Department of Water Resources in Boise, requested the file. Buried in Box 47, folder Custer Dry Creek Subbasin, I found it. A 1998 amendment requiring any user diverting over 10,000 gallons day to install real-time flow meters and submit monthly usage reports. Viridian Peaks permit filed in 2021, no meters, no reports. Under Idaho law, that's grounds for automatic suspension. But better, I found something else. The water right was tied to the mining claim. And since I'd just proven the claim was active, I own the water. Not them. The counter-strike. Candace struck back fast. First, a smear campaign. Eco-extremist blocks affordable housing for rural families in the Idaho Falls Post-Register. Then, anonymous calls to the state vet board claiming I was selling unpasteurized milk without a license. I had a valid farmstead exemption. Then someone slashed my goat trailer tires, left a note, "Goats don't vote, we do." I reported it, the sheriff shrugged, probably kids. But I knew. So I went public. I called Derek Lynn, an investigative reporter at KTVB who'd exposed a gold mine's illegal water dumping in 2020. Subject line, luxury HOA stealing water from active mining claim, while families downstream go dry. He came the next day, filmed my goats, my spring box, the raw scar where their graders had torn up the sagebrush 200 yards from Dad's juniper. I didn't mention the grave, I talked about water justice. About how 3 ranches downstream had seen their wells drop 15 feet in 2 years. About how Viridian Peaks was using 280,000 gallons per day to irrigate Kentucky bluegrass in a desert that gets 10 inches of rain. Derek's piece aired on a Tuesday. By Thursday, my GoFundMe, Help a Mountain Rancher Defend Water Rights, had raised $33,000. Ranchers from Salmon to Dubois sent checks. A retired hydrologist in Twin Falls offered pro bono testimony. Even a group of fly fishermen from the Henry's Fork Coalition pledged support. Because this wasn't just about me. It was about who gets to decide what the land is for. The hidden lever. Then I found the real leverage. While digging through Viridian Peaks bond filings, I noticed something odd. Their $3.8 million infrastructure bond, backed by future HOA dues, had a covenant. Water supply must remain uninterrupted for 20 years or bond defaults. But their water permit was conditional on compliance with state monitoring rules, which they'd ignored. So I filed a formal complaint with the Idaho Water Resources Board. Simultaneously, I purchased the mineral rights to the 40 acres upstream of my claim, land owned by a defunct timber company. Why? Because under the prior appropriation doctrine, if I could prove beneficial use of the water, like restoring native riparian habitat or supporting drought-resilient agriculture, I could call the river. Meaning, in dry years, my 1911 right gets water first, their 2021 permit last in line. I had $28,000 left after legal fees. The mineral rights cost $25,000. I sold 18 goats, my best milkers, to cover closing costs. Dad would have hated it, but he'd have understood. The showdown. August 14th, Water Board hearing, Chali Community Center. Candace arrived in a black Range Rover, flanked by 2 attorneys from Boise. I walked in wearing my work boots, Dad's old Carhartt, and a silver bolo tie he'd won at a rodeo in 1963. The room was packed. Ranchers, retirees, even a few Veridian homeowners confused, holding printouts of their HOA dues. First, Derek played drone footage of their unpermitted gratting near the juniper. Then, the retired hydrologist showed models proving their water use was lowering the aquifer. Then Marlene Briggs, a widow from Antelope Flats, stood up. They offered me $400,000 for my 60 acres last year, she said, voice shaking. I said no. Next month my property taxes jumped 41%. Same thing happened to Earl Jenkins and Tom Ruiz. 3 hands shot up in confirmation. Finally I took the mic. I'm not trying to stop growth, I said. I'm asking for honesty. You built a luxury community on borrowed water. You ignored the rules because you thought no one would notice. But the land notices, the water notices, and so do we. Candace tried to rebut, said I was weaponizing nostalgia. But the board chair, a soft-spoken woman named Alina Rojas who ran a sheep station near Lidor, cut her off. Ms. Voss, your company failed to install required flow meters for 3 years. You diverted water without reporting. Under Idaho Code Section 42-222, your permit is suspended effective immediately. Candace went pale. Furthermore, Alina continued, Ms. Calloway's 1911 water right is senior. If drought conditions worsen, Veridian peaks will be the first curtailed. The room erupted. Not in anger at me. At her. The fallout. Within a week, Veridian Peaks bondholders called a default. Homebuyers who'd put down deposits demanded refunds. Candace resigned, moved to Scottsdale. I heard she's selling desert wellness retreats now. Her project manager, arrested in October for filing false water use reports. Turns out he'd been paid $10,000 under the table to lose the meter installation paperwork. The new HOA board, elected by furious homeowners, hired me as a water consultant. Yes, really. We redesigned their system. Native xeriscaping instead of lawns. Graywater recycling for toilets. Rainwater catchment on every roof. They even renamed the development Veridian Commons. No peaks, no luxury, just common sense. And the road. They rerouted it along County Road 9. Cost them $412,000. Worth every penny. The legacy. Last spring I rebuilt the goat barn with volunteers, 20 from the valley, 8 from Veridian Commons. One woman named Lena brought her kids. We didn't know, she said, hammering a truss. We just wanted mountain views. I know, I said. Now, the Widow's Vein Conservation Trust manages 120 acres, including my 80 and the 40 I bought. We run youth workshops on water law, partner with the Shoshone-Bannock tribes on native seed restoration, offer microgrants to small ranchers fighting water grabs. And Dad's grave. We built a low stone wall around the juniper, planted bitterroot and sage, added a small bronze plaque. Silas and Eli Calloway. Miners, ranchers, stewards. The land gives only to those who listen. Every May we hold the Dry Creek Gathering, music, goat cheese tasting, talks on land ethics. Last year over 300 came. Even Judge Pike. He handed me a jar of his wife's huckleberry jam. You fought clean, he said, that's rare. I didn't win because I had money or power. I won because I knew the rules, and because the land had my back. Because in the West, the fence line doesn't lie. And neither do the people who walk it. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Has an HOA, developer, or corporation ever tried to steamroll you? Did you fight back? What was your weapon? Law, community, stubbornness? Because stories like ours, they're the only thing that keep the wild places wild. And if you liked this, hit subscribe. Next week, the retired schoolteacher who used a 1934 railroad easement to block a lithium mine and turned her backyard into a solar co-op. The fight's not over. It's just getting started.